Hi, welcome to Gem's channel where we talk about anything and everything. And I want to thank the several people who have written to my email and asking for help. I am not going to name those people, but I just wanted to take time to acknowledge you and to take the time to acknowledge that you have been very brave in what you're doing. So thank you for doing that. I feel very blessed. I feel very honored that you have put your trust in me. And don't worry, this video is not going to mention anything about anyone or their situation. Instead, this video is going to cover this topic. It's not just me. I'm going to say people in general, including me. How often have you looked back at the past when you were a child and say, why the hell did I do that? Why the hell did I do this? And you judge it. And you judge what that child did as bad, as evil, as wrong. I want you to do this. Think of this. You're looking, say you did something when you were age 10, and say you did it for a certain reason, whatever that 10-year-old did it for, whatever, we don't know, okay? But the 10-year-old had reasons for doing what that 10-year-old did. And here you now are, say it was me, 10-year-old Gem. Okay, let's take an incident. 10-year-old Gem was, this is truth, had a shop. And this guy came in who I didn't like, and he didn't like me. And I served him, and I treated him really badly. I did a bad thing. I gave him his change and I threw it and said, go get it. Now that was a bad thing to do, but I'm looking at that action as a nearly 63-year-old. I'm looking at this 10-year-old from a 63-year-old perspective, not as a 10-year-old perspective. But let's take another example. Let's say you are 9, whatever age, you're a child anyway, and something is happening to you in your life, and that you think that you can make your life or your family life better if you acted in a certain way. Here you are 40 years later, and you're looking at that 9, 10-year-old and say, God, I did a bad thing. That was wrong of me. Again, that's a 40 or 50-year-old judging a child. When you are a child, you reason as a child. So you can't, as a child, reason as an adult. When you are a child, you do things out of childish intent, out of childish motives, not as an adult, because you only have a brain of a child. So what you choose to do as a child, you do from a child perspective. So 20, 30, 40 years down the track, when you're an adult and you look at what that child did, you can't judge that child, because now you're looking at that child, whether that child be 9, 10, 12, as an adult, and you're putting adult connotations on a childish behavior. A child can only do, a child is limited. A child has a child brain. A child can't see that 20 years later what they've done is a bad thing. They have done it out of childish motivations. So this is what I would say to you. If you're feeling bad or terrible about something you did as a child, don't look at it at the age you are now. Go back to that child and be that child. So in other words, you did something, say, when you were 6 and you're ashamed of it now as an adult. Go back to that 6-year-old person and think as a 6-year-old. Think, what options did I have as a 6-year-old? And you will see that as a 6-year-old, you only have a 6-year-old options. 6-year-old, it's only as an adult that we get these judgments of things that are bad, the things that are good, that we should have done this and we should have done that. But it's only as an adult that we get hindsight. And as hindsight, we look at things and we judge them. You can't judge a child. A child is a child, and a child reasons as a child. We, as an adult, now have an adult brain. And yes, we have to take responsibility for what we do as an adult. But as a child, we only know childish things. This is why, and I am not a Christian, okay, I'll make this quite clear. But in Christianity, I think it's the age of 12. Before the age of 12, there is no judgment on the child. So in other words, a child is said to be free of sin because they don't, I'm not saying that a child doesn't know what right and wrong is, because we do as children, but it's as a childish view of what's right and wrong. It's only when we are an adult do we know the consequences, do we judge that right and wrong. But as a child, we are a child, and we only have certain options as a child, and we can't see into the future. As a child, we don't reason consequences. As a child, we act out as a child. We don't think of consequences. We just act as a child. We're not mature enough to know what our actions would do. We act as a child. So if you are going to go back and have a look at yourself as a child, you go back to that 9-year-old child and you give that 9-year-old child a hug and say, it's all right, because you were only 9 years old, not 39. I hope that makes sense. So in other words, as an adult, we are held accountable for what we do. But when we are a child in a difficult situation, especially, say it's in a situation of a toxic, dysfunctional situation where, for example, I had a very toxic, dysfunctional childhood, and my father, as I've shared, was a violent alcoholic who sexually abused me. One day, after hitting my mother left and she went down to the telephone and she rang, and I was all for it because as a child I wanted to fix this situation. I wanted to be happy. Children want to be happy. Children want to be loved. Children want to be cared for. When they're in an abusive, toxic, violent situation, look at that situation that you were in as a child and reason that you only could act out as a child, not as a 35-year-old. Okay, if that doesn't make sense, and I would love to help and explore this topic further, but I don't want to go on for too long because I tend to lose my audience. But I just want to get this in your head. Children lack hindsight. Children lack morals and ethics until they reach a certain age. The only way that they know something's wrong or right is because they'll get a slap on the hand or punished. But to a child, even then, they don't know that that is wrong. All they know that they've got into trouble for doing something wrong because they've got a slap on the hand. It's not until they are an adult that they've made that judgment that what they did is wrong. But as a child, it is not wrong. A child is a child and does childish things. And if you are going back into your childhood to judge yourself, you can't, because you're judging that child from your adult perspective. You can't do that. You have to judge it from child perspective. What were your motives and intents? And be that child in that moment and love that child. Maybe you were seeking attention. Maybe you were seeking love. And as my counsellor once said to me, and this is as an adult when I did something wrong, in an irrational situation, we can only act irrationally. Now put a child in an irrational, illogical situation, and if we're an adult and can't get it right, what can a child do? So if you go back to your childhood, don't judge it. It is what it is. All right. I'm not saying that children are not naughty. Don't get me wrong, because children are naughty. But I'm saying you can't judge yourself from a 35-year-old perspective when you were 6. You can't do that. Only a 6-year-old knows what a 6-year-old was doing. Okay? And you have to look at motives. And children have only got a limited set of resources or a limited set of behaviors to achieve a certain outcome. Does that make sense? All right. Thank you again for watching. I don't know whether I'll be on tomorrow. I've really done quite a lot of videos today and I'm quite tired. Trying to do counselling takes a lot out of you. And I need counselling. All right. Love you guys. Thank you for watching. Remember, just be in the moment. Don't judge it. Hindsight is well and good. We can only do what we can do given the set of circumstances that we have before us. And sometimes maybe we don't do the right thing. But as an adult, if you acknowledge that as an adult you have done a wrong thing, so as an adult take responsibility for adult actions, that's what we should be doing. A child is a child. Yes, then they get naughty. Yes, children tell lies. Yes, children do bad things. But they don't have an adult perception of childish behavior. Alright, I love you guys. This video is done. Bye for now and have a good night. Take care, all of you.